This is a summary of Chapter 17, Third-Party Rights. There are always rights and duties of either one or both parties involved in a contract. And this chapter talks a lot about the term privity of a contract, which basically means that there is a private agreement between those two parties and no other party is privy to the rights and duties of that contract. However, the chapter talks about exceptions to the privity of contract. One exception is being able to transfer the rights or duties of the contract to another party. And another exception is being able to use a third-party beneficiary contract where the parties agree that the contract will benefit a third party. So a bilateral contract is where both parties have rights and duties, and any transfer of the rights is called an assignment. Any transfer of the duties is called delegation. Assignments are important and often used in business financing, such as banks and lending institutions. An assignment is pretty simple. It just transfers the rights. So an assigner transfers the rights, and then an assignee receives them. When the transfer is unconditional, the rights of the assigner are extinguished, so they no longer have the rights that they transferred, and the assignee can only impose the rights that were originally assigned to them. They can't create other rights prior or after the assignment. So as a general rule, pretty much all rights of a contract can be assigned, but there are some exceptions, such as assignments that are prohibited by statutes, assignments within any contract that is personal, an assignment that significantly changes the risk or duties of the obliger, or where a contract expressly prohibits assignment in itself. So if a state or federal statute prohibits assignment, then assignment cannot take place in a contract. If a contract is personal in nature, so this example talks about someone who's trying to transfer rights from her children to someone else's children, and children are obviously very personal, so that assignment can't work in that situation. If the assignment significantly changes the risk or duties of the obliger, so the example here is an insurance policy is crafted for one hotel, and that hotel tries to transfer the rights of the policy to another hotel, but that changes the risk that the insurance company had previously been prepared to take on by providing an insurance policy, so assignment doesn't work there. And then if the contract itself states that assignment cannot take place, then assignment is prohibited. And then finally, once valid assignment has been created, then the assignee should notify the obliger of the assignment, and this is just called notice of assignment. We move on to delegations, which is just like assignments. There is, but instead of an assigner and an assignee, there's a delegator and a delegatee. But in this case, if the delegatee fails to deliver, the responsibility normally falls back on the original party who delegated in the first place. So just like with assignments, most duties can be delegated, but there are some exceptions. Some of these exceptions are situations that involve special trust or specific skills, when the performance of the third party will vary materially from that expected by the obligee, and when contracts expressly prohibit delegation. So if a duty is personal in nature, or requires specific skills. So this example says that O'Brien is impressed with Brody's ability to perform veterinary surgery, so asked Brody to perform surgery on her horse, but later when Brody is supposed to perform the surgery, she decides she doesn't want to and delegates her duty to a different veterinarian. But because that veterinarian wasn't the one that the obliger asked for in the first place, then that situation changes and delegation cannot take place. If performance by the third party will vary materially from expected by the obligee, for example, the obliger trusted the judgment of someone to carry out a task, but that person delegates their duty to someone else, the delegation is not valid because their performance varies materially. Their judgment is different than the judgment of the first person that was trusted with the duty. And then finally, if the contract itself specifically prohibits delegation, the delegation cannot take place. So just like with assignment, if delegation is valid, then the obligee first accepts performance, and then the delegate can give it to them. The assignment of all rights basically takes place when the words used in a contract are really general, and it's hard to specify what are the rights and what are the duties, and this creates assignments and delegations that the court assigns. And then the final exception is third to the rule of, or the privity of contract is third-party beneficiaries, which is where when the parties agree that a contract will directly benefit a third party, then that third party also has a right to pursue legal action for any breach of the contract. So it's up to the court to determine which party made the specific promise that benefited the third party, and this helps them figure out who was the promiser. And they do this so that if the third party sues for breach of contract, they will only sue the promiser, and that leaves the other party out of the situation, puts less of a burden on the courts. So the two most recognized types of third-party beneficiaries are creditor beneficiaries and donee beneficiaries. So the first is when a creditor benefits from a contract where one party promised to pay another party a debt that the promisee owed to the third party. And then the second instance is when a contract is made specifically to give a gift to the third party. And there's really, like it says right here, the modern view is that there's really no clear line between these two beneficiary types. So courts often just make the decision whether the beneficiary was intentional or incidental. And this section talks about when the rights of an intended beneficiary vest. And so the rights of the third party do not matter until they take effect, which is specified here. And incidental beneficiaries are just people who were not specifically in the contract written to benefit from this contract. And because it was incidental, not intentional, they have no legal right to sue should there be a breach of contract. And this final point just talks about that courts focus on intent and contract language to decide between which beneficiaries are intentional and which beneficiaries are incidental. Thank you.